I'm Sharon McKellar. I work for Oakland Public Library, where I coordinate teen services, and we are bringing you this program today. And so, thank you for coming. I'd be curious if anybody wants to share if you're here in Oakland or if you're coming in from elsewhere, because Zoom kind of allows that magic to happen. We This is sort of our big event for the summer. And this week is the social justice themed week of our Teen Summer program, which is part of why we're presenting Piper this week. And if you haven't heard about our program and haven't signed up, it's all pretty simple. At oaklandlibrary.org/teen summer, and I'll put that in the chat. You can sign up to be part of our Teen Summer program, and you basically earn virtual raffle tickets for doing all kinds of activities. And then you enter those raffle tickets into raffles, and we have a PlayStation, I can't keep track, whatever the newest one is. And we have a Nintendo Switch and some Beats headphones and some gift cards. So some pretty cool prizes. And just for being here at this program, you can earn 3 of those virtual raffle tickets. So it's worth jumping on our site and signing up just to at least get a chance at those. We are recording this event, so if you either don't want your name or face shown at all anywhere, please just let me know that in the chat, or you can reply to the email I sent out with this link and let me know. And you can also choose not to turn on a camera if that impacts things. But we don't need to share this publicly if there are people who are not okay with that. So I'm going to introduce Piper, Piper Ferreira, who is an Oakland local. He is a rapper, an actor, a writer, a screenwriter, and gained prominence primarily initially as a rapper with his band Flipside. I'm not going to say much more because his whole presentation is going to tell you his whole amazing story. But you're in for a real treat. So Piper, thank you so much for being here. And everyone else also thank you and welcome.
All right, thank you. Thanks for having me. Okay, so now's a good time to share the screen. So we go into it?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, share screen. There we go.
And as always, everyone, be patient with us if we have technical issues in this world of Zoom. Right now, we're seeing the white one, and that happened once before, so you might have to Oh, there it is. Nope, we got it.
All right. Life of Pipe. I didn't know what to title this, so just went Life of Pipe because it's, basically just taking from different pieces of my life, hoping that some of them resonate with you and where you are right now. So that's my band, Flipside. We got to tour the world, but this presentation is going to be framed around the arts and social justice. So I'm going to tell you how I went from, being a little kid walking around the Bay Area to, walking around India and Japan and England and back, and what I'm doing now. So I think a good place to start would be when I was about 4 or 5 years old. That was the first time that I met the police. And my mother was a single mother. She had 3 children. She had to work. She left us at the babysitters, and the babysitter had 2 bad sons. And I was 4 or 5, and they took me across the street to go to a department store so they could steal some little action figures. This is a picture of me. And I didn't know. I'm in the store. I'm walking around, minding my own business, and then I look up and they're gone because I guess somebody got caught on to them and they ran off and they left me. And my mother told me if I was ever lost, in a department store, to go to the cashier and tell her. So, I went to the cashier. Excuse me, ma'am, I'm lost. I'm by myself. And she took me in the back and gave me a candy bar, and they called the cops. And a cop came. He was a white or Latino guy, and maybe in his 30s. And I just remember the stripe on his pants, and he had shiny boots, and he was real nice. And he put me in the car. He piled up 2 telephone books and sat me on top of the telephone books. And he must have been asking me where I live. And because after driving around for a while, we ended up on a block that I lived on. And my mother was walking down the middle of the street crying. She had just got off work. She's walking down the middle of the street crying, looking for her son. And he said, "Is that your mother?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I got out of the car, and that's all I remember. I don't remember him sticking around or the conversation they had. I just remember that my mother cared about me, the cashier cared about me, and the cop cared about me, and the caring was seamless in the community. And I ended up back home with my mother, and that was the first time that I met the police. Now, the second time I met the police, I was living in West Oakland, and I was about 11 years old. It was summer break, just like it is now. And I remember me, my little sister, she was about 8, and my little cousin, he was about 7. We were just playing football in the front yard, tossing the ball around. It's summertime, it's hot. We got our bikes, and couple guys come running around the corner, like 5 or 6 of them, teenagers, 17, 18, 19, no shirts, running around the corner. And I'm from West Oakland. This is crack, during crack epidemic. This is like late 80s, 90s. I'm like, okay, I've seen this before. Some other dudes are gonna pull up. It's gonna be a fight, or they might start shooting. The dudes run around the corner. Hey, little homie, throw the ball. So start playing catch with them. But instead of another gang, it was the police. Police come smashing up from all different corners. Get down on the ground. Make everybody get down on the ground. They come running in the yard, guns out, throw all the dudes down on the ground. And I'm just standing there with my football watching. And one of the cops looked down at me. And he looked at me and he asked another cop, he said, "Was he with him?" Because I'm just standing there with my football and my little sister and my little cousin. And I'm looking up at this cop and the one that he's talking to, and all these white men standing in my yard with guns. And it was the first time in my life that whatever happened next was not up to me. And it wasn't up to my mother. And I'm standing there, and my mother's at work. And it's just me and my little sister and my little cousin. And the other cop looked down at me and he said, "Nah, he wasn't with them. Let's go. Throw him in the car. Let's get up out of here." And that was about the time when, I stopped being a cute kid. That was about the time when I started borderline, I guess, resembling a suspect. And I told my mother, and my mother was active. My mother was conscious. She used to teach at the Nation of Islam school back in the day. And, she just shoved Black history down our throats. Documentaries, we are descendants of kings and queens. All of the crack addicts walking around outside, that's not us. The prostitutes on our corner, that's not us. The pimps, that's not us. All the murders, that's not us. We're royalty, we're intelligent. And she's shoving this stuff down my throat, and I'm soaking it up. And outside, it's the bloodiest year in Oakland. It's 175 murders in 1992. By the time it was all said and done, it says 167 in this article, but there were some people in the hospital that later succumbed to their murders. But I'm oblivious to it because, I'm studying, I'm reading what my mother is forcing me to read, and I'm playing football. And I have my friends, and we're not drinking, we're not smoking, because it was a time of extremes. It's like, you needed to focus in that time. So we're just studying, and we're playing football, and we're going to school, and we're having a good time. And it brings me to the third time that I met the police. So I was in my late teens, and I'm coming out of the liquor store in West Oakland with some orange juice and a bag of Doritos, and the cop car smashes up, and 2 cops jumped out. "Where's the gun?" And they point the gun at my head, and I see the cop. He's like shaking, like I'm looking at the gun, and he's shaking, and he's terrified. And I just knew to stay calm, and I don't have a gun. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what you're talking about. They frisked me. They saw I didn't have anything. They said there were shots fired around the corner, but I no longer look like that little kid. You know, I look like this. And I guess that was enough. There were shots fired around the corner, and you know, I fit the description, so I had guns in my face. And I knew that if I made a false move, it would have been over. But it wasn't over. Focusing on football, focusing on school. I ended up getting a football scholarship. My homeboy Q, he got a football scholarship. He went out to Tennessee. My partner Khalid, he went to Colorado. Juwan went to Colorado. Hannibal went to Colorado. Uh, you know, we all made it out, but eventually we all came back. And my homeboy Jihad, he was the most articulate. He was the strongest. He was the fastest, and he was the most politically aware. So it hurt to see my boy Jihad going into this downward spiral of and I didn't know what was going on with him. I just knew that he got kicked off the football team at Cal. He had started getting arrested, and when I came back home and sat with him and talked with him, he told me that, you know, he had a drug problem. It was a lot about Jihad that we didn't know. You know, it turned out Jihad was gay, and that shocked us because we didn't have any prior knowledge of that. He had been someone else to us in high school, and I just remember those late night phone calls, going to sit with my homeboy Jihad while he was paranoid off drugs and thinking that the police were outside, and you know, thinking that people were after him, and just sitting with him for 3 and 4 hours, trying to resolve the issue, trying to help him get off drugs, trying to help him get his life together. And you know, eventually I got a call in the middle of the night, and you know, one of my homies that I grew up with told me that the police had killed Jihad. And I had to post this article because it says Oakland man killed by San Francisco cops had troubled past, knife wielder denounced gays and minorities. It didn't say that he was a gay black man and that he was having a mental breakdown and he was on drugs and he was probably screaming out to the world everything that the world had called him and everything that the world thought about him. And, you know, at the time, just growing up, we were trained and conditioned to just shove it down inside and keep on moving, just keep on pushing. And not long after this, maybe 3 or 4 months after this, I wrote the verse that you heard in that song. I try to lie, but it ain't me. Ain't me. Try to look, but I can't see. Can't stop right now because I'm too far. And I can't keep going because it's too hard. In the day, in the night, it's the same thing. On the field, on the block, it's the same game. On the real, if you stop, then it's no pain. But you can't feel pain, then it's no gain. You're rearranging, you're changing, it's all bad. And you try to maintain, but you fall back. And you're crawling and you're slipping and you slide down. Want to make it to the top, better start now. So I hold my soul and I die hard. All alone in the night, in the graveyard. Someday, one day, I'm going to be free. And they won't try to kill me for being me. I didn't realize that I wrote that verse in honor of Jihad until yesterday when I was thinking about this presentation. That's how far down deep inside I kept the pain. But this is my homeboy that the police killed. I didn't protest. I didn't go out there. I spoke at the funeral. His mother only allowed me and one other person to speak. And I just promised my homeboy that I will let the world know his name. And I would just carry his spirit with me wherever I went. Not long after that, my band Flipside got signed to Interscope Records. And we toured the world for 5 or 6 years with Snoop Dogg, with The Game, with a whole lot of people. But yeah, so the name of the game was just keep pushing. You know, no matter who died, who went to jail, it was like, keep pushing. I'm bringing all of y'all with me. 1 month after my homeboy Jihad's funeral, I was burying my partner, Marcus Holland, that I grew up with too. Not too long after that, it was Eddie Campbell. I go on the road, I go on tour, I get a phone call, somebody else is dead. I come home, somebody else is dead. My little cousin who was in the front yard with me, Rick Lab, when the police came in and laid everybody down with guns, he died on the way back from one of our shows. You know, my wife now that I'm with now, when she was my girlfriend, she had me go up to San Quentin to protest the Tukey Williams execution. You know, we were protesting to trying to get, you know, Tukey Williams off of death row. And, you know, I learned that, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger executed him when I was in Portugal. You know, I'm in front of 18,000 people. I had everybody put up their middle fingers to Arnold Schwarzenegger. I was just trying to do what I can do. I come home, I have a 1-year-old son. I'm at the gas station on Martin Luther King. I hear gunshots. And then I look down the street and I see Gary King Jr. lying face down in the street. The cop still has the gun out. You know what, I rap about that. And it's like this whole time that I'm rapping, my homeboy that's singing in the video has a drug problem that's just getting bigger and bigger. And I'm trying to get him help, but he's just going in a downward spiral. I'm trying to pull us up and we're being pulled down at the same time. So it just got to the point where things were gonna burst. Things were gonna explode. And right when it got to that point, we come home from tour and Oscar Grant gets killed by the police. And I'm gonna play you this.
Piper, we're not seeing, you might have to unshare and reshare the YouTube.
Videos.
Can you not see that?
No. Oh, now we can.
All right.
This is a collection of videos showing Bay Area Transit Police responding to a disturbance on a train platform in Oakland. Police are struggling with a man, one of the suspects in the train disturbance, and you'll see an officer in the background reaching for what appears to be something on his belt as his partner helps restrain him from the front. As you can see, a number of people in the station are confused and screaming. The officer then pulls out a weapon and shoots. He later tells his lawyer that he was reaching for a taser and mistakenly pulled his service revolver.
They just shot him!
Shooting the man in the back.
So I had just got back from India when that happened. And I had been all over the world, you know, talking about the American government and talking about the police and talking about my partners and, you know, carrying all these spirits and memories with me and pushing forward. My band was in a downward spiral. And then I get home and I see this on the news and I just started crying, you know, and I did what I knew how to do. I made a song. I have a degree in Black Studies. I made a song. I was born in Louisiana. Pops was a minister. 6 brothers and sisters, show on dividends. Moved out to Oakland, but my life still lesser than 14 pistol possession and vandalism, man. Graduated high school, still couldn't read though. Teachers wasn't nothing but a bump to my speed though. I'm self-taught, went to college and a law school, studying the system that's steady feeding us dog food. Area of the week, cops crack a head open. Make you want to load the lead and leave a pig smoking. Politicians talking, but they be sugarcoating. I know the penal codes. Let's put this thing in motion so you could carry loaded weapons if they ain't concealed. Started out, couple homies, me and Bobby Seale. Till they witnessed the Panthers and knew that we was real. We ain't the only brothers tired of brothers getting killed. Ride through the streets, and we mob deep. See a cop jack a brother make his heart beat. We hop out, guns out like an army, and this was the birth of the Black Panther Party. We tell the brother chill. Hey brother, don't resist. Give him your name and ask him if you under arrest. And if you are, we'll follow you and bail you out. The next day, everybody have us in their mouth. Cause I walk like a talk, like a stalk, like a panther. Ride like a glide, like a fight, like a panther. Do the grown man win a dance like a panther. Ain't much scary to a revolutionary, I'm a panther. The government is scared. The feds on us quick. Hoover hated us, want to see me in the ditch. Fake revolutionaries wanted me to switch. Infiltrated us, everybody was a snitch. October 28th, for the crack of dawn, the cops on me, I ain't even have my weapon on. I'm caught up in the storm. There was no hesitation. And everything that happened next, up to speculation. He was shot 4 times, other cop 3. Barely made it to the hospital when I couldn't breathe. I woke up handcuffed, wrapped in the sheet. The headlines read, cop killer Huey P. It's 2 to 15, but I appealed that. The evidence counterfeit, where the real at? In every ghetto full of brothers, it can feel that. I bounced back, now the Panther is a real cat. And little kids in the hood got school now. Free breakfast program, clothes and shoes now. We paying dues now. We got a school now. But the feds only want to shut the school down. The pressure getting to me. I don't know who to trust. The paranoia got me throwing fools in the trunk. I barely make it through the day without getting drunk. I'm trying to plug up all the holes, but we getting sunk. Cause I walk like a talk, like a stalk, like a panther. Ride like a glide, like a fight, like a panther. Do the grown man win a dance like a panther. Ain't much scary to a revolutionary, I'm a panther. Look, the feds got a program dividing and they conquering. COINTELPRO ain't taking no hostages. Federal, the state, and the local interlocked for this. The #1 objective at hand for them is stopping this. Everybody locked up, dead or on the run. So I switch up the image and put away the guns. Stressed out, charged with another murder one. And by now, I done probably snorted half a ton. Blackmail, jump bail, disappeared fast. Hopped on the plane, hit Cuba, 3 years passed. Came back and got acquitted again. For a minute, it was good, like we did it again. But it didn't take long for the demon planet in my soul to control everything I own, to devour and counter every punch I've thrown, to create a war zone from the home I've known. I got a bachelor's and master's, even got a doctorate. All I ever wanted was my people to be confident. The revolution lives, ain't nobody stopping it. It takes place in your heart when you stay positive. But when he put the gun to my head, I looked the youngster in the eye and this is what I said. You can kill my body, but never kill my soul. My soul will live forever. It's in this song. But in 2009, people wasn't really trying to hear no conscious music. So I've been around the world rapping about what I saw and what I felt and what I went through coming up, rapping about my homeboys that are no longer here, rapping about what the cops are doing. And I was in a band. My homies play guitar. So my partners on the block, robbing fools and selling crack wasn't listening to my music. The police wasn't listening to my music. And the people I was rapping to in India and Portugal couldn't speak English. So I went to the protest. And the last protest I had been to before that one was probably Rodney King. And that was in the early 90s. And we went to the protest for Rodney King and it was all on film and the cops still got acquitted. A couple of them went to the PM for a little bit, but nothing really happened from that. I had a degree in Black Studies. I had studied Brown versus the Board of Education that integrated schools in 1954. But my homeboys that went to McClymonds were still going to a segregated school. My partners that went to Castlemont were still going to a segregated school. So I didn't have a lot of faith in, I know that, protesting is a large part of our history and it was if it wasn't for protesting, I wouldn't be able to have the band that I had, with my homeboys, we wouldn't have been able to do that. So I had respect for protesting, but I was at a point in my life where I needed to see some sort of immediate change right now, or I felt like I was going to explode. And I went to the protest and there was a circle of artists there and we were being interviewed by a hip hop journalist. And he asked us, you know, what we could do as artists to stop this stuff from happening. And I had been all over the world rapping about this stuff, and I didn't see change coming from my lyrics, at least at the time. And this is what I said. Past 12 months. How many people have been murdered by police in Oakland in the past 12 months? You know, I mean, that speaks to something else. Mayor Dellums, he made a push to hire more police officers, and I believe his goal was 805. But I mean, these are police officers coming from, you know, the suburbs, coming from 70 miles away, coming from 100 miles away, coming from states away, coming from Kansas to police our community. And, you know, and you begin to wonder, you know, why is this person such a good Samaritan and he's willing to drive 100 miles to police another community? You know, I mean, he wants to put his life on the line to be a police officer, but he's not policing the area that he grew up. He's not policing his wife. He's not policing his mother, you know, his friends. He's driving over here to police us. You know, it's an occupying force. I want police officers that I grew up with. You know, I want somebody to pull me over that taught me when I was in the 3rd or 4th grade. You know, I want somebody to write me a ticket that I've been on for 20 years. I don't need someone that doesn't understand my culture, that doesn't understand, you know, my lingo, that doesn't understand the way I dress with authority over me with a gun. I don't need that in my life. You know, I don't need that in my son's life. You know, I have 2 children. One son is 7 and the other is 2. What do I tell him? You know, do everything that you're told, like Oscar Grant did, and you still may get shot? No, I don't need that. I don't need that in my life. I'll get rid of this. Press it. Now what? Present.
Let's see. Yeah, I think it's coming. There we go.
Okay. So I was at the protest, and I began to look around. After he asked me that question, I was really forced to think, like, what could I do, you know, as an artist? It's 2009. There was no Black Lives Matter nationwide movement. I didn't see people from all over the world banding together, you know, in the name of justice for Black people. Like, that wasn't happening. And, you know, as far as being an artist at the time, I didn't see the impact of my words on my community. I was largely overseas. And, you know, my homeboy's drug problem was dragging us down, and my boys are getting murdered back here. And I looked around the protest, and I saw thousands of people, and people were crying. People were passionate. People were out there and they wanted change, just like me. And I'm looking around and I'm thinking, what's our best possible scenario? Just like martial arts and just studying politics, it taught me to think strategically. I'm like, what do we hope? What's our objective? What do we hope to gain from this? And the answer was, just in talking to people, was we wanted to get rid of Johannes Meserly. We wanted to get rid of that cop. They killed Oscar Grant. And at the time, you know, getting rid of cops like it is today, but it was even worse then. It was few and far between. It was a miracle if you could get rid of a cop for killing somebody. But I thought, what if that miracle happens and we can get rid of this cop? What's going to happen after that? Because somebody's going to replace him. I know there's a push right now to abolish the police. You know, that's great. I don't know when that will happen, though. You know, I'm not saying it's impossible. I just don't know when it will happen. And in between now and then, more of my partners are going to be getting killed, right? So if we got rid of that cop, somebody was going to replace him. And I knew that it wasn't going to be me. And I looked around the protest, and I looked at everyone's faces, everyone that was passionate and loved our community enough to be there, but I couldn't imagine anyone there replacing them either. And that was a bad feeling. It was a bad feeling to know that the largest victory we could possibly have would ultimately be a failure because he would be replaced by someone that thinks like him. It's a high probability that it would be someone that thinks like him because it wouldn't be anybody that thought like us. And I sat with that. I sat with that for a long time, months. And I began to think, maybe I should go into law enforcement. I didn't feel like they would hire me because I've been arrested before. Like I said, I had homies that were in the pen at the time. My uncle did 34 years for murder. I've been all over. I've been on Snoop Dogg's. I've been on the stage with Snoop in front of the weed plants. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling Portugal, you know, throw the middle fingers up to Schwarzenegger. It's like, they would never hire me, but just the idea. It's like, maybe I should go into law enforcement. Like, maybe I should occupy a badge and a gun and make it do what it's supposed to do. And I bumped into one of my homies because I used to be a counselor at juvenile hall. And he told me that, he was like, yeah, you're right. They probably wouldn't hire you, but you could pay your own way through the academy. And I didn't know that. He said it costs about $5,000. And I would be able to put my money down and then go in and compete against everyone that they had already hired. And I said, you know what? I talked to my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. And I said, baby, either I'm going to do this, or I'm just going to stop talking about it. Just me personally. I know someone needs to talk. We need people everywhere. You know, we need protesters, we need teachers, we need counselors, you know, we need librarians, we need people everywhere in every slot. But me personally, the life that I led and the path that I had walked, either I was going to do that at that time and then get kicked out of the academy, whatever happens, or I was just going to stop rapping about it, because that's where I was at that time. And she did not want me to do it, but she loved me and she believed in me. And she said she would ride with me. Nobody wanted me to do it. Everyone agreed that someone needed to do it, just not me. So I took my $5,000 and I put it down and I went in, and I ended up giving a commencement speech at the graduation. I beat everybody up and I learned a lot. A man that grew up in Oakland, has a degree in Black Studies, and goes into the academy to get the law enforcement education and be able to see the world through a completely different lens. I learned a lot. And I'm going to share some of that with you right now because it's extremely important. So one of the first things I learned past 12 months. How many people have been murdered by police in Oakland in the past 12? That's snap judgment. I did a piece on me. All right, so one of the first things I learned, when you're somewhat conscious and you go into the academy or you put on a uniform and you go around the community, you see racism in bright fluorescent colors. Like, you see it everywhere. It's evident. And when studying how Black people end up getting shot by the police, you take the training into account, and you take racism into account, and you take everything that you've learned about, you know, your community into account. And this is what I arrived at in my little bit of time in there. There's a philosophical tool that cops use, and it's highlighted in training, but it's already embedded within the minds of most, like, warriors or guardians or heroes or whoever whatever you want to call them. It's called the priority of life. And the priority of life determines that in a rapidly developing situation, when a cop comes into a situation, the most important life is the life of the hostage or the victim. The second most important life is the life of civilians. The third most important life is the life of the officer. And the least important life is the life of the suspect. So this is how that plays out. You go into a house, it's a domestic violence call. The wife's mouth is bleeding. The husband's fists are bleeding. She's a victim, he's a suspect. Her life is more important than the cop. The husband's life is less important than the cop. Get out on the ground. So that's the priority of life. Step 2, the science of lethal force situations. The science of lethal force situations determines that it takes the average human brain about 0.75 seconds to determine that something has happened. About 0.75 seconds to determine that I pointed a gun at you. And then it takes another 0.75 seconds for the brain to decide what to do about it and tell the body what to do. So that's a total of about a 1.5 second delay time. The average human can fire several shots in a second. And in the academy, we would do these drills where we have plastic guns and one person would stand on one side of the room and he would have his plastic gun pointed at the other person, and the other person would have his plastic gun dangling down at his side, right? Now, person A with the gun pointed, his job was, as soon as he saw the other person's arm move, he says, bang. That's his job. The guy with the gun dangling at his side, his job was to be able to raise the gun and say bang before the man pointing at him could say bang. And nearly 100% of the time, the guy with his gun dangling down at his side would be able to raise it and say bang before the one who already had the gun pointed at him. We did these drills over and over and over again. So we could be aware that an action is faster than a reaction. So you put those two together. You have the priority of life, which determines the victim life is the most important. Then the bystanders is the second most important. Then the cops is third most important. And the suspect is the least important life. Then you have the science of lethal force situations that says you will always be 1.5 seconds behind in action unless you already know what you're going to do and you don't have to figure it out. Unless you're already thinking that this person might have a weapon and you're not going to be surprised by it. Then maybe you can cut the reaction time down a little bit, right? So when you put those two together and you mix them with the reality of just plain racism, in knowing that Black people are going to be disproportionately identified as suspects by American citizens and the police alike, then what you're going to have is a disproportionate number of times in which police and Black people come into contact with each other, and the cop's life matters more than the Black person's life. And just sitting in the classroom and dissecting that and absorbing that, and then going out into the world and seeing over and over again people calling the police on Black people for nothing. If you look at these high-profile officer-involved shootings, at least half of them started with somebody picking up the phone saying this Black person is a suspect. I think he had a gun, or so he's mysterious, he's suspicious, he's outside, he might be trying to break into my house. It's not much has to happen in order for a person to fall into the suspect category. And then I'm out there in uniform, and you get the police, and you get called on the same individuals over and over again, young Black kids. And you show up, and if you have love in your heart and you have understanding of what's going on, then you're going to look at the priority of life and you're going to say, victim, witness, officer, suspect. If I approach this young Black man or this Black man or this Black woman like they're a suspect, if I approach them with it in my mind that they may have a weapon, that I already know I'm going to pull mine, my voice tone is going to be different. Our energy is going to be different. I'm going to be treating this person like a suspect that might just be an innocent human being walking around. So what has to happen is you have to decrease the value of your own life and increase the value of the potential suspect's life. Now, how does that play out? This is how it plays out. I was about to get off work, and a call came over the radio of a Black woman that had been robbed at gunpoint. She had been robbed at gunpoint, and the suspects were 4 Black males, 1 possible Black female, big Black gun. they ran southbound East 14th about 2 minutes ago, right? So I'm driving around looking for the people that robbed this woman that could have been my mother, put a gun in her face. And I get a reasonable distance away from where the crime was committed within a reasonable amount of time. And I see a person that fits the description that they put out on the radio. He has on the same thing that one of the suspects had on. So what I'm supposed to do, since this dude may be armed with a gun, what I'm supposed to do is get on the radio and say, I have eyes on a possible, this is my location, this is what he's wearing, and this is the direction he's facing. But if I get on the radio and I put that out, I know that my partners are coming full speed with knowledge that the suspect's life matters less than theirs, with knowledge that they're at a 1.5 second disadvantage, with the Constitution backing them up that they could get out with the guns and get out on the ground right now. Let me see your hands. All of that would be legal. And I'm not 100% sure that this is the suspect. So I say, I'm not going to get on the radio. I'm going to park where he could clearly see me. And then if he takes off running, I'm a little more confident that he's the one. So I park and I get out. He doesn't run. Okay, I'm going to walk directly up to him. And then if he runs, he might be the one. So I'm walking up to him. He's not running, he's just chilling. The grass is a little wet. Every step I take, I'm decreasing the value of my own life and increasing the value of his. No constitution is going to mandate this. This is behavior that could get, people with, people within the system would say the cop is being reckless and he should be removed from the streets. I walk up to him. What's up, man? How you doing out here? It's a beautiful day. Both of his hands are in his pockets. I had just watched a video a week before where the dude shot the cop in the face through the pocket on a domestic violence call. But I'm not going to say, could you take your hands out your pockets? Because that would be treating him like a suspect. And what if he wasn't? So I just stood next to his right hand because the majority of people are right-handed. At least he would have to turn to shoot me and maybe I would be able to react. You know, he didn't look over his shoulder like people do before they run. He didn't touch his head like people do before they kill somebody. His voice was even. I talked to him for about 5 minutes and I decided he's not the one. And then I left and ended up finding the dudes 4 or 5 blocks away and didn't have to pull out my gun. I just jumped out and told them to stop, sit down right now. And they did it. But this is the thing. I got to do repeatedly. I got to treat my people the way they deserve to be treated. But the whole time I knew that if that dude would have pulled a gun out and blew my head off, the cops would have said, what did he expect? He didn't follow protocol. And my community would have said, what did he expect? He was working in an institutionally racist organization. But every day I did that anyway for 8 years. And I wasn't always perfect. But that was on my mind. That's what change looked like to me. And I had an opportunity to implement that. So I did that to the best of my ability. I was able to take BB guns off kids and they're all still breathing. Unlike Tamir Rice. This is what a BB gun looks like next to my gun. Same thing. There's a call of a black male with a gun. I try to get there first. And I'm like, that's a 15-year-old kid. It's probably a BB gun. So no, I don't pull my gun out on him and say, get the fuck on the ground. I walk straight up to him. What's up, man? People saying you got a gun. It's a BB gun, man. All right, I believe you. Just turn around. Let me tell you, where is it? It's in my right pocket. Okay, I'll take it out. Get on the, I'm code 4. I took 10 of these off kids in one summer. But no law is going to mandate that. That's going to come from the individual. That's going to come from inside. And I tried to show up at as many meetings as possible. I talked to as many cops as possible. I talked to as many people in the community as possible. And, ultimately, I wrote a play about it because I didn't know what else to do. I'm an artist at heart. Talking wasn't getting us anywhere. So I wrote a play about it, and I performed the play, and I took the play all over the country, and the play was hardcore, ruffled a lot of feathers. I was a little aggressive in the Q&As with cops, with people from the community. I'm a passionate individual, and I attacked it like a rapper would. And ultimately, I came back from doing the play, and I came back to the streets after like 2 years, and the reality of what was going on, I didn't have the will to continue in that position any longer. And I looked back on what I was able to contribute, and I said, you know what? This is enough. And cops thought I was crazy. They said, this dude is literally doing whatever he wants to do in law enforcement, and he wants to leave. Yes, it's time for me to go. So I bounced. I left. After 8 years, I resigned, turned in my badge and my gun, and I started writing. I got into Sundance, the Screenwriters Lab. I got agents at UTA. I got my homeboy off drugs. Well, I helped to get him off drugs. The band is back. We just toured India like a year ago before the pandemic. And I'm working on a TV series right now. But in the midst of that, I took the family to Africa to start the healing process. And that'll be another presentation for another day. The librarian is telling me that it's time for a Q&A. I've been talking too much. My mouth is getting dry. So how do I get out of this? Do I stop sharing, or what do I do? Press escape?
Yeah, why don't you stop sharing?
Stop sharing.
And then we can go into a view where we can sort of see everybody, or at least I can, and just see if anyone has any questions. You can raise your hand with the little raise hand button. You can put it in the chat. You can turn on your camera. You can just start talking. Peggy reminds me, teens have first dibs at questions. Adults to the back. And I know you have some. So let's not. Oh, there we go. From Myra, the Oakland Youth Poet Laureate. Myra asks, have you ever wanted to give up while on tour because of all of the deaths?
No, I didn't. It was, I was doing it, partially for them. It's kind of, like the one homie that makes it to the NFL. I had a lot of homies make it to the NFL, but, whoever makes it puts the community on their back. Myra Estrada, you're the Poet Laureate of Oakland. That's huge. Hats off to you. Yeah, I couldn't give up. I kept smashing. I actually didn't think I would get through the academy. I thought they would kick me out. And then when I made it through, I said, I'll only do 2 years. I ended up doing 8 because I just I did it my own way. And instead of kicking me out, I ended up kicking down more doors and kicking down more walls and finding a few allies within the space that saw that I was serious and saw what I was doing. And we were able to put our heads together and create a little space for ourselves, like a unit for ourselves, but that's a different presentation.
All right. And then from a teen who's at Camp Sweeney, they ask, what did you do as a counselor at the hall?
Well, I was at Camp Sweeney for a little bit. I was at the old hall. There was an older one. It was back in the day. And it was a counselor, man. Talk to the kids. One of the songs on our first album I wrote for the kids there. It was called U.S. History. It was when the Iraq War kicked off, and I wrote that song to teach them about history. And yeah, Camp Sweeney, man. I remember my little homie ran from Camp Sweeney. He ended up getting killed down in downtown Oakland. A lot of kids got killed, man. It was sad. Hats off to you up there at Camp Sweeney. Hold it down. Stay positive. I don't know if I'm talking to a counselor or a kid that's actually in Camp Sweeney. Who am I talking to?
You've got at least a teen, and then you have Cyrus he works with writers at the camp, basically. So.
All right. So writers at the camp, for the writers at the camp, know that your life is golden. Know your life is golden. And if you articulate it properly, if you write your life experiences down, the entire world will be able to feel it. Because, our story is the greatest story in the world. It's an amazing story. How we fell from greatness and how we're trying to get our legs back under us and stand up again. So what you've gone through, people in Guinea and Saudi Arabia and Japan and France are all waiting to read it. So write it down. Don't run from it. Embrace it and write it down.
Not crying. So I said, I'm not crying. Just it's such an important message. That's all. Any other questions? We can definitely oh, there we go. How did your band get famous, and was it a slow start?
Okay, I had been rapping for like 6 or 7 years. Ever since I, left college, I had been rapping for years and probably made like $400. And then I had a son, and I said, I got to go back to college and, get my degree. And I wrote a screenplay, and they paid me like $3,000 for it. I said, hey, I can write. So I figured that, I would stop rapping and just write screenplays. And that's when my band got signed to Interscope. So we got together in like August 2003, and we were signed in April 2004. But I had been a solo rapper for years, not making any money. And, they had been solo singers and not solo, but a solo singer, and our lead guitarist had played in dozens of bands and never made any money. So it's like when you find the right combination, things tend to move. The reason why anyone isn't where they want to be is because they're not ready yet. That's the only reason why. They may be missing a lot, or they may be missing a little, just one more lesson. So it's a process, and you want it to be a process, because every now and then opportunity gets dropped on people, whether they're ready for it or not. And you find out real quick they weren't ready for it, because they lose it immediately. Like someone that wins the lottery, $50 million, and 3 years from now they're bankrupt. They won $50 million, but they didn't have a $50 million mind, and they didn't prepare themselves to handle $50 million. So it's gone. It went back to where it belonged. So, if you're a person that's, seeking an opportunity, do everything within your power to be ready for it when you get it, and then you'll be able to hold on to it.
Amazing. Anyone else? As Peggy says, you can also unmute and say your questions. There is. Did I miss one? Oh, there it just popped up. Okay. Oh, okay.
Hold on.
Okay.
The first question was directly to me, so let me say it. And it was, what was the hardest thing about being a cop?
The hardest thing about being a cop was I wasn't, like I said, I reacted like a rapper. God, there are so many lessons. I reacted like a rapper, but rappers have a certain power of influence. Cops have a concrete power over people's lives. And when I was in the academy, one of the instructors said, you all are going to have to choose whether you want the last word or the last action. He said, you can't take the last word and the last action because you'll end up having to fight someone to the death. And I just thought of it, I received that as, man, they're just trying to tell me, they're trying to silence me. They don't want me to speak, right? But then when I got out there and I saw the way that people reacted to the uniform or they reacted to concrete power, it's almost like when you go to a city council meeting and the people are yelling at the mayor or yelling at the city council people, and the city council people are just calm and they're not really saying anything because at the end of the day, they have the power to transform the infrastructure of the community. And everyone knows that. So when I got attacked and I was a cop in uniform, I responded with words. And a lot of times it was the wrong thing to do. Being a rapper, you pride yourself on coming real, not rehearsing it. Just coming, from the top of the mind, and this is how I feel right now, and this is what I'm going to say. But your words are scrutinized in a different way when you actually have concrete power and decision-making ability over people's freedom in their lives. So, one of the hardest things was keeping my mouth in check. And, and one of the least, one of the worst things about it was, being on the line at protests. I did 2 protests and I hated it because there's no autonomy at a protest. And, I'm standing there and I know our history well. I know protesting has done something for our people. So I know it means something. And I'm standing there and I know all the reasons why I'm standing there in that uniform. I know all the reasons why I put that uniform on. And everything I went through to put that uniform on, paid my way through the academy. It's risking my life on a daily, risking my reputation. I am a rapper. I toured with Snoop. I came up with some of the biggest gangsters in West Oakland. So I knew what I was going through, but nobody else did. And, I was judged as if I was no different than Johannes Messerly, the dude that killed Oscar Grant, that gave me the idea of even going into policing. And I'm not blaming anyone for that. Those people did what they were supposed to do out there. So that was definitely, those were some of the hardest things about the job. I mean, I'm a martial artist, so the discipline of it and, waking up at 3 a.m. to be somewhere at 5 a.m, fully dressed and all that wasn't a problem. Working out, going hard. I came up playing football and like doing kung fu and like capoeira and stuff. None of that. It wasn't difficult. I was already athletic and I excelled. I found out that I could shoot well, digesting the information. I love studying. I love studying our history. So to study this history to study the inner workings of law enforcement, that was great. So yeah, it was just that, the personal level and, the barriers that would be created between myself and my people and having to explain to people and getting tired of explaining, what I'm saying? A cat pimping, what I'm saying? He pimping 17 and 18-year-old girls. 16 and 17-year-old girls are supposed to be in high school getting an education. He's pimping them and calling me a sellout. And then a lot of people in the community on his side in the argument. So stuff like that, keeping my mouth in check on things like that, having to think through that before I say something about it. And you could tell that it's still frustrating to me because one of my little cousins was out there in the streets, 15 years old, getting pimped. So do I react to that like a cat from the streets? my cousin getting pimped, I'm about to knock this fool's head off. And all my homies would agree with it. If I do that as a cop, it's going to be a problem. So working through that's a lot. You know.
All right. So we have one more question in the chat, but I wanted to check in with you, Piper, before we went to that and just see. I want to make sure you get a chance to tell any more of. I don't know if you had more presentation you wanted to show or more story, or if you want to just take some more questions. It's 4:45 right now, so.
Yeah, I think I should take more questions. It's like it's a presentation.
All right.
Maybe you guys could have me back another time.
I mean, I want to hear from you for like 4 more hours, but you know, so totally. So Dominic asked, what made you keep going even through all the hardship, especially while getting your PhD and constantly keeping busy?
I wasn't getting my PhD.
I was going to say, I didn't think so.
My wife got her PhD. She was getting her PhD from Cal in education. So we were the cop and the teacher living in the hood, trying to make it work until like I almost got into a shootout across the street from my house in front of my kids. You know, keep going. It's just, you know, my mother had a lot to do with it. Even though my mother did not want me to be a cop, she had a lot to do with this, hammering it into my head that we were descendants of kings and queens and we define our own reality. You know, we define our own reality. We're the first people on this planet. We're brilliant. We're intelligent, you know, but some white cop with a beer belly gets to tell me what to do. Like somebody gets to drive around my community with a badge and a gun and hop out and decide if an 11-year-old boy that's playing in the front yard with his little sister and his little cousin gets to decide if that 11-year-old boy is going to jail right now. You know, so that kept me going. It's like, look, man, this is hard. But at the end of the day, I know what I did today. I know what I did today. I know that little black boy might have been shot and killed because he's playing with his BB gun and doing his thing. He looks around and makes sure no police are around, and then he's showing his partner the gun. He's a little kid. He's not thinking things through, but the people driving by are calling the police. So it's like, I know what I did today. He might be alive because of what I did today. So I know it's hard. And, you know, I only left when, you know, my will to take a lot of those risks started to diminish. When my will started to diminish and taking those risks, it's like, you know what, it's time for me to go. It's time to move on. Because I don't want to hurt anybody in my community. Please ask me anything y'all could think of. I'm passionate, you know, but I love y'all. I won't get offended. You know, just ask me. I'll try to answer it. Hopefully I have the answer.
Any other
Hi there.
questions?
Hey,
Oh, hey,
excuse me,
Stephanie.
I'm talking through my mask, so use my muffled voice. But rich stuff you're mining about the sort of split personality you had to have, to, you know, to be on one side of the protest in uniform, and the ironies of what's going on in our community. I really appreciate it. I have some fun questions. What's at the bottom of your T-shirt? I saw art and science, and also the you mentioned going to Africa. I'm not sure if you went and if you tapped into, you know, the spiritual aspects of that. But can you also describe the painting behind you?
Oh yeah, all right. Bottom of the T-shirt is culture. My brother-in-law made this T-shirt. He's up in Portland. This is the Iemonja Festival in Brazil. My father's from Brazil. I try to go every other year. And as far as the spiritual aspects of Africa, I've been studying, you know, Ifa and the Orishas since about 2013. I feel like it's a continuation of my, you know, degree in Black studies, just going into the spiritual. I mean, because people's connection to the divine is at the center of who they are. So, you know, I studied the politics of us and the history of us. Of course, I don't know everything. My knowledge is a drop in the bucket, you know, to all of the giants out there, you know, fighting for progress for our people right now and in the past. But I went into the spiritual most definitely. And yes, I took the family to Africa. We went to Guinea. We went to Senegal. We went to Guinea-Bissau. We went to the slave castle in Dakar in Senegal. And I got to walk in. I wanted to show you all the videos and the pictures, but they just didn't want to be shown. So I guess that's for another presentation. I'm going to make a presentation about my entire trip to Africa. And yeah, it was a trip walking through that slave castle. We stood in the doorway of no return, and we had to take a picture because we had returned. And if my ancestors came through that particular slave castle, I don't know if it was a male or a female. I don't know how old they were. I don't know if they were in good spirits or not. I don't know if they walked through that doorway believing that they would be able to come back to the continent or not. But I know that I was standing there with my family, and I was representing my entire bloodline and everyone that came before me, and I had my children with me. So I was representing everyone that's going to come after me too. So it was a victory for me and my family going to Africa, and I can't wait to go back.
That's really powerful. I'm going to actually interrupt just with my little announcement while people think of their more questions, because it seems like a good time in case anybody needs to peel out early. We have a second small event with Piper tomorrow. That's a special opportunity for teenagers who would like to use art in social justice work. And so it's a much smaller group, a really good chance to interact directly with Piper. So I'm going to just put the link in the chat to where you can sign up for that if you are interested. I know we have some folks on this call who are already signed up for that, but if there's any other young people who might be interested, first come, first serve. Yes, says Peggy. Any other questions? And please feel free to unmute or turn on your camera and just ask. It's not a giant group. It's totally doable.
Piper, you might not know that we have, we're showing this on the wall in the teen zone at the main Oakland Public Library. And so there's people in that room. And it's also being shown at San Quentin with at least one teenager, as well as Youth Uprising, although I don't know how many young people are there. And so there's groups of people here as well, just so you know a little more about who's in the room.
Shout out.
We have a few poets.
Shout out to San Quentin. We did a performance at
Did I say San Quentin? I didn't mean to. What did I say? Youth Uprising, Camp Sweeney, yeah. And then the Teen Zone. I'm sorry, that was my mistake.
That's all right. Yeah, we did a performance at San Quentin back in the day. They had a bunch of race riots, and the lifers put together a performance, and we went up there and performed. Shout out to Youth Uprising. What's up, y'all? Shout out to everybody. Camp Sweeney. Please ask me more questions. So, you know, whatever information I have, I'm just trying to pass it on. I love these times. I love my people. I love y'all. I love Oakland Public Libraries for putting this on, reaching out to me.
We love you.
And, you know, we're just getting further. I'm surrounded by love now. I went to Africa. That helped with the healing, but it wasn't enough. I had to, you know, keep the healing up. So I'm working out every day. I'm swimming. I'm doing capoeira. I'm doing martial arts. I'm lifting weights with my homeboys. And, you know, my wife is amazing and magnificent. She's a teacher. And I got my 3 children. And it's going down. I did capoeira with Malandro. Malandro is dope. He's in Emeryville. He's he's the first person from North America to pass through this like special tactics capoeira course deep in the forests of Brazil that Mestre Bimba created. We could do a whole presentation on capoeira. I did capoeira with Malandro, and I do it with Mestre Timba. Mestre Timba and Maurice. and contramestre, achebe. So I'm not as consistent as I should be. My background is in kung fu, but I need to get more consistent in capoeira. Yeah. So that's all the healing and just reading as much as possible, reading and writing, and working on, my scripts and journaling and just pushing it forward, trying to leave something.
Anyone else?
All right.
Okay.
Well, thanks for listening.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Coming out and listening.
That was really great. Oh, look, now another question, of course. All right. What do you think? One more?
Sure.
What convinced you to become a rapper?
Wow. I think it was just love for it, a love for it. There's a voice. The word is close to the center of African culture and descendants of Africa. So the word is very important, which was another reason why I didn't want to be silenced to us. And, rappers have it right now. They have the mic right now. They're handing down from one generation to the next the news of how we feel and what we value. Unfortunately, a lot of it is getting corrupted, by corporate dollars, and because it's more of a business now. So something else will morph out of it, but the spirit never dies. In Brazil, it was in capoeira. It was embedded in capoeira. All those different Africans down there put their martial arts styles together and invented capoeira. And they sang the songs and they played the music, and they kept the center, the essence of the culture in that, in samba and in candomblé. And up here, we went through our spirituals that we were singing like out in the fields. It's like, why are they singing if they're slaves? We're singing for survival. That's our lifeline. That's the umbilical cord to something that's eternal. And, that morphed into, the blues and gospel and rock and roll and then hip hop. And, as we don't know what's coming next, but whatever's coming next is probably going to come from the people that's listening to me talk right now, because it's y'all's generation. Everything is speeding up, and we're at a point where we could literally tap in with somebody on the other side of the planet and see how much we have in common. So I'm excited for what's coming next.
I'll turn my camera back on for a second so you're not all alone there. All right. Well, it's kind of perfect timing. It's just about 5. Everybody, thank you all for being here. If you missed the beginning, oaklandlibrary.org/teen summer, you can sign up for our summer program, get some virtual raffle tickets. Literally while we were on this call, like the Beats headphones that are one of our prizes got brought into my office. So we're gathering prizes. And if you're interested in spending some more time with Piper tomorrow, that's oaklandlibrary.org/Piper Circle. We'll see some of you there. Thanks. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you all.